What's good, YouTube? Sensational Sinceres here, and I'm back with another Clancy'S The Division Vendor Reset video. We're here for October 9th, 2020's Vendor Reset. So let's get right into this and see what we got good for this week. Okay, so for our first gear items, you want to head over to Camp Hudson. Here, the gear vendor has an operator mask with the talent Enduring on there. It has a gear score of 269. The armor is 855. Its roll for stamina 1207. And the attributes it has is skill power and increased kill XP. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the meat locker. Here, the weapons vendor has the heavy magazine spring with 3% crit hit chance, 4.50% reload speed, and 10.50% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the base operations. Here, the weapons vendor has a tactical Super 90 SPS with a gear score of 270. It has 330% stagger, and the talents it has is brutal, swift, and competent. And also here we got an extended magazine with 117.50% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 5.50% rate of fire. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the advanced weaponry vendor, and here we got a tactical ACR with a gear score of 264. There's 19% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is prepared, capable, and adept. Also here we got an SASG-12 with a gear score of 260. It has 312% stagger, and the talents it has is competent, predatory, and vicious. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special equipment vendor, and here we got a Liberator with a gear score of 272. It has 23% enemy armor damage. And the talents it has is skilled, adept, and prepared. Also here we got an operator mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 883. Its roll for stamina 1265, and the attributes it has is exotic damage resilience and disorienting resistance. Also here we got a prototype firearms mod with 257 firearms and 3,119 health. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 2% pulse crit hit chance. Also here we got a pro red dot sight with 18% crit hit damage, 2.50% stability, and 5.50% headshot damage. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got a snub nose rhino blueprint with a gear score of 256. We also got a stamina mask blueprint with a gear score of 256. And also we got a vertical grip foliage green blueprint with a power level 34. For our next gear items, we're gonna head over to the cavern. Here, the gear vendor has a Spec Ops mask with the talent refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 1001. Its roll for electronics 1132. And the attributes it has is health on kill and blind death resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to Camp Clinton. Here, the special equipment vendor has a Cassidy with a gear score of 273. It has 302.50% stagger, and the talents it has is adept, vicious, and boomstick. Also here we got a Pecan if you like to run this weapon. It has a gear score of 275. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is fierce, swift, and Pecan. Also here we got a Liberator with a gear score of 273. It has 19% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is dominant, destructive, and vicious. Also here we got a Historian with a gear score of 274. It has 150% headshot damage, and the talents it has is balanced, unforgiving, and Historian repeats. Also here we got a Super 90 with a gear score of 261. It has 297.50% stagger, and the talents it has is ferocious, unforgiving, and responsive. Also here we got a Paratrooper SVD with a gear score of 271. It has 160% headshot damage, and the talents it has is talented, ferocious, and disciplined. Also here we got a tactical vest with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 276. The armor is 1908. Its roll for firearms 1240. And the attributes it has is skill haste, all resistance, and ammo capacity. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% ballistic shield damage. Also here we got an extended magazine with 118% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 5% reload speed. Also here we got a mega rifle suppressor with 18% headshot damage, 2.50% stability, and 4% crit hit damage. For our next gear items, we're still at Camp Clinton. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got a compensator blueprint with a power level 34. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Dante's Run. Here, the gear vendor has a Spec Ops armor with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 278. The armor is 1941. Its roll for firearms 1238. And the attributes it has is health on kill, all resistance, and ammo capacity. And also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% seeker mine damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Autumn's Hope. Here, the gear vendor has an operator mask with the talent Enduring on there. It has a gear score of 282. The armor is 998. Its roll for electronics 1262. And the attributes it has is crit hit chance and damage to elites. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 4.50% ballistic shield damage resilience. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Madison's stand. Here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 6% Seeker Mine explosion radius. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the last call. Here the weapons vendor has a heavy magazine spring with 4% crit damage, 12% magazine size, and 10.30% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the ward. Here the gear vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 263 firearms and 3,162 health. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the firewall. Here the gear vendor has a prototype stamina mod with 207 stamina and 3% damage to elites. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the crypt. Here the weapons vendor has a heavy magazine spring with 3% crit chance, 4% crit damage, and 9.70% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 31st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an operator mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 270. The armor is 973. Its roll for firearms 1,152. And the attributes it has is enemy armor damage and increased kill XP. Also here we got a prototype electronics mod with 262 electronics and 2.50% exotic damage resilience. And also here we got an SR7 suppressor with 18% crit hit damage, 4.50% optimal range, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 34th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype performance mod with 6% first aid self-heal. And also here we got some Spec Ops gloves with the talent Savage on there. They're not a really good roll, but I figured I'd mention it because I'm here. They have a gear score of 271. The armor is 974. Its roll for electronics 1,140. And the attributes it has is health on kill, enemy armor damage, and assault rifle damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an enhanced AUG A3P with a gear score of 266. It has 21.50% crit hit chance. The talents it has is Unforgiven, Vicious, and Sustain. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 7.50% turret health. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype performance mod with 5% ballistic shield damage resilience. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype stamina mod with 259 stamina and 2.50% exotic damage resilience. For our next gear items, you want to head over to East 58th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a tactical mask with the talent Enduring on there. It has a gear score of 267. The armor is 866. Its roll for electronics 1,177. And the attributes it has is exotic damage resilience and burn resistance. Also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Inventive on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,179. Its roll for stamina 1,228. And the attributes it has is skill power and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the Park Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a military AK-47M with a gear score of 267. It has 22% enemy armor damage. And the talents it has is Adept, Fierce, and Swift. Also here we got a tactical SASG-12K with a gear score of 278. It has 344% stagger. And the talents it has is Determined, Vicious, and Competent. Also here we got a classic M60 with a gear score of 270. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents it has is Competent, Unforgiven, and Self-Preserve. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a SASG-12 with a gear score of 267. It has 293.50% stagger. And the talents it has is Competent, Responsive, and Dominant. Also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 270. The armor is 1,262. Its roll for electronics 1,147. And the attributes it has is skill power and disrupt resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a classic M60 with a gear score of 266. It has 22% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents it has is Sustained, Ferocious, and Prepared. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a surplus SVD with a gear score of 279. It has 148% headshot damage. And the talents it has is Unforgiven, Meticulous, and Discipline. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 40th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an MP5 ST with a gear score of 268. It has 21.50% crit hit chance. And the talents it has is Adept, Capable, and Fierce. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 34th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype performance mod with 7% ballistic shield health. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ2 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has an operator pack with the talent Inventive on there. It has a gear score of 283. The armor is 1,332. Its roll for firearms 1,241. And the attributes it has is Stability and Disrupt Resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ3 Safe Room. Here, the Dark Zone Weapons vendor has a tactical ACR with a gear score of 266. It has 22% enemy armor damage. And the talents it has is responsive, adept, and swift. Also here we got an M870 Express with a gear score of 272. It has 348.50% stagger. And the talents it has is trained, brutal, and destructive. Also here we got a surplus SVD with a gear score of 265. It has 165% headshot damage. And the talents it has is prepared, dominant, and disciplined. And also here we got a military M60E4 with a gear score of 265. It has 21% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents it has is unforgiving, dominant, and fierce. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ8 Safe Room. Here, the Dark Zone gear vendor has a Spec Ops mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 980. Its roll for stamina 1,161. And the attributes this has is exotic damage resilience and damage to elites. Also here we got a tactical vest with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 263. The armor is 1,773. Its roll for electronics 1,144. And the attributes this has is skill haste, exotic damage resilience, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ9 Safe Room. Here, the Dark Zone Weapon Mod vendor has an extended magazine with 118% magazine size, 4% crit damage, and 3% crit chance. Alright everybody, that's it for our Tom Clancy's The Division vendor reset video for October 9th, 2020's vendor reset. I hope everybody who tuned into it found them something that they needed. Smash on that sub and like button, y'all. I appreciate that support. Check me out on Twitter, check me out on Instagram, and check me out on Twitch. I stream on there sometimes. And I appreciate that love, y'all. And I'll see y'all with the next one. Take care. Peace.